about what's special about K-content?
In recent years, Korean cultural content has taken the world by storm.
So, what's your favorite K-content? Movies, dramas, music, exhibitions?
Are you ready to take your pick?
Starting with globally acclaimed K-movies. It's no longer rare for Korean movies to receive awards at international film festivals. And we can't talk enough about the K-drama sensation.
It's not surprising that drama filming sites go on to become major tourist attractions.
When we are on the topic of K-pop, we can't leave out idol groups. They are the driving force of K-pop.
K-pop idol group members do not only have exceptional singing and dancing skills, but they have the looks too. I'm a huge fan.
I really like Korean underground music. These days, talented K-indie bands are recognized overseas as well.
Oh, and Korea also has a lot of music festivals. You can meet musicians of all genres at these events.
Exhibitions happen in Korea all year round.
I also enjoy going to the theatre. There's no shortage of musicals, plays, and performances to choose from. So keep an eye on the theatre scene.
Then there is K-design, blending traditional and modern elements.
K-fashion, leading trends.
K-beauty, which takes beauty to the next level.
K-content, receiving praise the world over. Watch it, experience it, and enjoy it.
Your gateway to Korea, simply K-pop.
Hello everyone, I'm your Simply MC Daejeon of AB6. 반갑습니다.
Don't cry. You don't like me? That's fine. You don't like me? Keep on. You don't like me? Then bye. You know like you love in your mind at the time.
귀엽던 그대로 돌아가서 말할 거야. 잘 다녀왔다고.
Then this week's Simply K-pop,
Gateway to Korea.
don't miss out.
The moment we wear it, our spirits lift. It helps us grow strong in body and in mind. As we wear it, we learn patience and respect. The belt system motivates students to strive harder and continue growing. This uniform shapes movement into grace and turns performance into something thrilling. Now, embraced around the world, Taekwondo shares our culture, philosophy, and values with pride and spirit. Though it may seem simple, this uniform holds your passion and your journey. It belongs to Taekwondo. Wear the extraordinary. be with Taekwondo.
The first budget proposal under the Daejeon administration is struggling to be put to a vote at a plenary session as we come on air, with the ruling and opposition lawmakers failing to narrow their differences. The Trump administration plans to send unilateral tariff letters to at least 10 countries on Friday to make them pay the levies on August 1st. South Korea's trade minister will be in Washington this weekend for last-minute tariff talks with the U.S. ahead of the July 9th deadline. President Lee Jae-myung continues to make time to sit down with the citizens and hear their concerns in person, this time in the city of Daejeon. We begin at the National Assembly, where a crucial vote for the government's proposed extra budget continues to be delayed amid continued debate between lawmakers. For more on the fate of this bill, we connect with our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun on the line. Hae-ryun, what's the latest at the Parliament?
Good evening, Dami. The National Assembly's plenary session to vote on the new administration's first supplementary budget bill has been repeatedly delayed, with disagreements continuing to cloud the process. Lawmakers were scheduled to vote on the bill on Friday afternoon at 2 p.m., but the session was pushed back following last-minute talks to finalize the bill at the Special Committee on Budget and Accounts meeting and internal divisions within the ruling Democratic Party. Initially proposed at 30.5 trillion Korean won, or roughly $22 billion, the supplementary budget ballooned during committee deliberations at the National Assembly. The version passed by the Budget Committee now totals just over $23 billion, with the increase largely driven by two contentious items: a consumer voucher program and the restoration of special activity funds for 4 government agencies, including the Presidential Office. The inclusion of the prosecution in these special activity funds is what has sparked opposition within the DP, with one lawmaker calling it not appropriate on social media.
Now, you have to walk us through the main points of contention between the ruling and main opposition parties, Hae-ryun.
Right, so leading up to the vote, the two parties have been clashing over the bill's key provisions, particularly around how and where the additional spending should be directed. At the heart of the bill is the ruling party's push for livelihood recovery through direct support for households in the form of vouchers that can be used like a gift certificate at small local businesses. Depending on income, Korean citizens in the capital region will receive between 150,000 and 500,000 won, while those living outside the capital region will receive more. The DP emphasized the urgency of passing and executing this in order to boost domestic consumption and help people's livelihoods. Another major point of contention was the reallocation of special activity funds for the Presidential Office. The DP proposed restoring the funds, which are typically used for confidential or discretionary purposes, a move that drew sharp criticism from the PPP. Opposition lawmakers called this move hypocritical, given that the DP had previously slashed the same budget when in opposition. But the DP holds a majority in the National Assembly and can push the bill through on its own without the opposition People Power Party's backing, which is what is expected to happen after the PPP declared earlier today that it would be abstaining from voting. And I'm also just hearing now that the plenary session is due to begin at 8:40 today. And that's all I have for now, so back to you, Tammy.
All right, it's looking to be a longer night than we all thought. Hae-ryun, thank you for that wrap-up. Now, in other news, President Lee Jae-myung is stepping up efforts to engage with the public, holding a town hall meeting in South Korea's central region today after last week's stop in Gwangju City. Our top office correspondent, Song Yu-jin reports.
The second stop of President Lee Jae-myung's town hall series was the central city of Daejeon on Friday, often called the nation's science capital. Going well past the scheduled hour, President Lee listened to residents share their concerns about debt relief and science and technology policy. Small business owners and the self-employed talked about ways to recover after years of hardship brought on by the pandemic and a sluggish economy.
One of the most important parts of helping people get back on their feet is supporting small business owners and the self-employed. We need a strong foundation so they don't get trapped in a cycle of heavy debt. We should set up a one-stop system that covers everything from debt restructuring to business restart support.
President Lee took the time to outline his administration's plan to cancel long overdue debts for low-income earners and small businesses, which has been raising eyebrows over fairness.
빚을 지면 신용불량되죠. 사회적으로 보면 정상적인 경제 활동 못하는 상황이 발생합니다. 그러면 손실이죠. 정부 입장에서 보면. 그래서 이런 걸 그냥 방치하는 게 과연 옳으냐.
The discussion then turned to revitalizing science and technology, areas the government sees as critical to national competitiveness.
For researchers, it takes a long time to even start a career. Most jobs are temporary contracts, and honestly, the salaries are much lower than people think.
Taking note of each speaker's comments, President Lee stressed the need to foster meaningful research.
진짜 필요한 연구를 하자. 정부에 보고하기 위한 연구하지 말자. 그리고 행정에 너무 많은 에너지를 쏟게 하지 말자. 그리고 성공률 따지지 말자.
After listening to stakeholders, President Lee directed officials to develop policies centered on the needs of people on the ground. Wrapping up, he pledged to speed up the relocation of the presidential office to nearby Sejong City as part of his vision for balanced regional growth. 송유진, Arirang News.
The Trump administration continues with its tariff threats to countries around the world, this time by planning to send that tariff letter starting Friday. And South Korea's trade minister is heading back to the U.S. for the last-minute tariff negotiations over the weekend. Our Moon Ji-young has the details.
With just days left before the temporary halt on tariffs expires, South Korea's chief trade negotiator Yo Han-gu is making his second visit to the United States within a week for high-level trade negotiations. He is set to meet with U.S. officials, including U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington this weekend. This marks a swift follow-up to his previous talks last week, during which he emphasized Seoul's commitment to good faith trade discussions with the Trump administration. Speaking at a plenary session of the National Assembly on Friday, Yeo indicated that he would actively consider requesting an extension from the U.S. side, depending on the progress of the negotiations. He further articulated South Korea's negotiating stance.
We will conduct negotiations pragmatically, prioritizing national interests, with the aim of reaching a mutually beneficial agreement between South Korea and the U.S. Our goal is to pursue a complete exemption from reciprocal tariffs and all product-specific tariffs, ensuring that we are at least not disadvantaged compared to competitor nations. Furthermore, in the industrial and energy sectors, we will establish a strategic cooperative relationship between our two countries.
This comes amid growing tariff pressure from the U.S.
So we're going to start sending letters out to various countries starting tomorrow. We'll probably have 10 or 12 go out tomorrow. And over the next few days, I think by the 9th, they'll be fully covered. And they'll range in value from maybe 60 or 70% tariffs to 10 and 20% tariffs.
Yeo stated that high-level and working-level negotiations would be conducted intensively to swiftly conclude the talks, thereby leaving open the possibility of additional negotiations. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank said on Friday that both South Korea's exports and imports are declining, but with inbound shipments dropping more sharply. The current account stayed in surplus. However, exports are expected to take a bigger hit soon when new tariffs kick in. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
South Korea's current account remained in the black in May for the 25th consecutive month, logging a current account surplus of $10.1 billion. According to the Bank of Korea on Friday, the figure is nearly double that recorded in April, possibly due to a slower rise in oil prices and the reduced imports. The central bank added that while this was the third largest surplus on record for the month of May, exports fell for the first time in 4 months as autos and steel struggled under U.S. tariffs.
The goods account surplus widened from the previous month as imports decreased more sharply due to falling oil prices than exports, which saw declines mainly in non-IT products.
Specifically, the goods account recorded a $10.66 billion surplus, although exports decreased by 2.9% to $56.93 billion, as imports decreased by a larger margin of 7.2% to $46.27 billion compared to last year. When both declined, it could be a sign of recession, but the BOK explained that this was not a domestic issue. Regarding the falling exports, when U.S. tariffs come into effect, the results will be clearer, especially with certain export items that South Korea relies on.
In the case of automobiles, the impact is expected to become more pronounced in the second half of the year. As local production expands, exports from Korea to the U.S. could decline to some extent.
Meanwhile, from January to May this year, the cumulative current account surplus stood at $35.11 billion, up $8.05 billion from the same period last year. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea is testing waters near the inter-Korean border amid claims that waste from a North Korean uranium plant could have reached the West Sea. Now, inspectors collected samples Friday from 6 sites around Gangado Island in the West Sea. Scientists will spend 2 weeks analyzing them for uranium, cesium, and heavy metals before releasing their results. Officials say monitoring will also expand to other estuaries close to North Korea. The tests follow reports from a satellite analyst claiming waste from the Pyeongsan uranium plant may have leaked downstream. Now, similar concerns surfaced back in 2019, but tests showed no major contamination. If you're in Korea, you might have come across these small black insects that fly around as a pair, which is why they're named Lovebugs. Now, they've been around for the past few years, but their return has been especially unwelcoming this summer with its worst seasonal surge in the number of Lovebugs. Our Park Hyo-bin tells us more.
Hiking trails covered with black bugs. At the top of the mountain trail, bags filled with dead bugs are stacked one after another. They're called Lovebugs, and they've been appearing in massive numbers across South Korea's capital region every summer in recent years. But many say they've never seen this many before.
They stick to everything. Even if you try to fan them away, they don't come off easily. There were just so many. I literally couldn't walk around without doing this. This year has been just unbelievable.
Here I'm standing on Gyeongsan Mountain, and as you can see, there are Lovebugs all over my clothes. And over here, these are their dead bodies. There are several theories behind the surge, but experts point to climate change as a key factor.
Although it's monsoon season, we've had little rain this year. which is a possible sign of climate change. Typhoons have missed Korea and brought heavy rainfall to southwestern China, causing years of flooding there. That may have driven the bugs to migrate naturally into Korea.
Though they cause some discomfort, lovebugs are actually considered beneficial insects, making aggressive extermination efforts difficult to justify.
Lovebugs actually play a beneficial role in the ecosystem by serving as food for other species and helping decompose organic matter. They don't bite or spread disease, but when they appear in large numbers like this, people tend to see them as pests.
Instead of using chemical pesticides, local governments are turning to eco-friendly control methods. Some municipalities are using LED lights to lure the bugs away from populated areas, while others deploy fire trucks to spray water and kill them. Authorities are also collecting the insects by hand and using sticky traps to reduce their numbers. Experts say the bugs tend to swarm most intensely until mid-July, after which their numbers decline. But they also warn that these seasonal invasions are likely to continue.
Given recent climate patterns, these outbreaks are very likely to continue. The areas where lovebugs appear may shift, but the phenomenon itself is expected to persist for the time being.
As lovebugs return each year in greater numbers, balancing ecological value with public discomfort is becoming a growing challenge for local governments and residents alike. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
It's Friday, which means it's time for Arts and Culture. We have our culture correspondent, Daejeon, here in studio. Welcome, Daejeon.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Daejeon, I'm particularly excited for your segment today since I hear it's about a musical.
Yes, it is. So, I recently went to Daegu for the 19th Daegu International Musical Festival, which is the largest musical festival in Korea. And even though the weather was really hot there, what I saw and experienced made the trip completely worth it. Let's take a look together.
This summer, Daegu once again transforms into a stage. Korea's largest musical festival, the Daegu International Musical Festival, or DIMF, brings creators and audiences together from all over. This year, showcasing 29 musicals from home and abroad.
The dress rehearsal for this year's closing performance, Panda, is about to begin. This Chinese production blends dazzling acrobatics with traditional martial arts, a real treat for the eyes.
A visual and musical spectacle, Panda tells a heartfelt story about love, coexistence, and the care we owe to nature. It's a piece that's beloved by Korean audiences. This reading performance, part of DIMF's musical incubation program, offers young talents a rare chance to present their work. Some pieces even go on to become full-scale productions with funding and support.
I received a lot of overall support from DIMF throughout the production process. But what helped me the most was getting direct feedback from the mentor instructors. That was incredibly helpful in developing and improving the piece.
I think the best part of this program is getting to meet great creators, working alongside talented actors, and simply having opportunities like this. For actors like me, that's one of the most valuable aspects.
With global success stories like Maybe Happy Ending, DIMF is more than just a festival.
As DIMF approaches its 20th anniversary next year, our hope is that musical fans from around the world will come to Daegu. To make that happen, we believe it's essential to connect the festival with tourism. Our goal and also our challenge is to grow DIMF into a truly global musical festival.
It's a symbol of what's possible for Korea's creative industry.
So, Daejeon, to my understanding, this year's festival has garnered more interest than ever because of the Korean musical that swept the Tony Awards. Tell us more.
Yes, of course. This year's festival was quite auspicious because it comes after the Korean musical, like you said. Maybe Happy Ending won Tony Awards in 6 categories, including Best Musical. And the roots of that triumph, they trace back to this very festival. Composer Will Aronson and writer Park Chun-yoo actually first met through a different project called Bungee Jump at the DIMF in 2012. They must have had good chemistry because Bungee Jump was met with very good reviews. They later collaborated again and created Maybe Happy Ending. Like this, DIMF acts as a place to foster new relationships and create amazing pieces together. So people are on the hunt for the next big show.
Then you have to tell us what exactly does the festival provide to young talent so that we can look forward to more of these masterpieces like Maybe Happy Ending.
Well, the reading performances that we saw in the video were part of the musical incubation program, which offers young talent mentorship and funding to put their creations on stage. And even without stage props and costumes, it allows the viewer to focus solely on the storyline, which is the core of any musical. These performances seem to be very well received by the audience. 5 student pieces were put on stage, and if any of them are well received by investors, they can receive funding and later be premiered at DIMF as a creative support musical, which is actually how the writer and the composer of Maybe Happy Ending met.
In 2008, a composer named Aronson had his work My Scary Girl selected for creative support through DIMF. The following year, we even staged it in New York as part of DIMF's outreach. Through that kind of process, Maybe Happy Ending was eventually born.
And perhaps because of that kind of legacy, the audience this year showed even more interest in creative support productions, which saw reservation rates over 30% higher than in previous years. So I think we can be optimistic about the future of Korean musicals.
Indeed, a bright future for a Korean musical to come. Thank you, Daejeon, for the report today.
It was my pleasure, Dami.
With the central region still affected by the gridlocked monsoon front, sporadic rain is falling on northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and the Seoul metropolitan area. This rain will mostly stop tonight, but some areas in northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and Gangwon-do province will see rain until tomorrow morning. With heatwave warnings and advisories in place in most parts of the country, daytime temperatures moved up to 31 degrees Celsius in Seoul, 36 degrees in Daegu, and 37 degrees in Miryang. Tropical nights and heat waves are expected to get worse next week. Tomorrow morning will be around 25 degrees around the country. Highs will move up to 32 degrees in Chuncheon and Jeju, 36 degrees in Daegu. Occasional rain is forecast in some central and northern parts of the country between Sunday and next Monday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 APEC은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
산에 오면 굉장히 일단 자연의 소리로 가득 차고 조용하거든요. 저도 그렇고 많은 사람들이 산을 통해서 많은 에너지를 얻고 또 다시 일상으로 돌아갔을 때 리프레시하는 그런 것들을 많이 얻어가는 것 같아요. 어느 날부터는 이런 아름다운 풍경 속에 정말 이질적인 하나의 모습이 눈에 들어오더라고요. 우리 인간들이 버린 쓰레기들. 제가 좋아하는 산을 즐기기만 하는 게 아니라 계속 즐기려면 제가 지켜야 하는 부분이 있으니까 나라도 조금 무언가를 해보자. 그리고 마음이 맞는 사람들이랑 같이 한 번에 변화시킬 수는 없을지라도 뭔가 우리가 계속 할 수 있는 일들을 해보자라고 했던 게 클린 하이킹이었던 것 같아요. 결국에는 사람들이 쉽게 사용했다가 내가 즐기고 맛보고 그냥 쉽게 편하게 사용하고 버려지는 것들이 가장 불편하기도 하고 우리가 심각하다고 생각하는 부분인 것 같아요. 쓰레기들을 보면 화가 나기도 하지만 또 이게 혼자 줍는 게 아니라 같이 줍다 보면 되게 재밌는 부분이 정말 오래된 막 50년도 더 된 쓰레기들을 발굴을 할 때가 있거든요. 2001년! 2001년! 우리가 태어난 연도보다 더 오래된 것들도 있고 이러다 보니까 같이 줍다 보면 더 그런 특이한 쓰레기, 재밌는 쓰레기를 찾으려고 게임처럼 막 하게 돼요. 자주 산을 찾고 자연을 찾고 즐기는 것도 중요하지만 조금 더 산을 사랑할 수 있는 쉬운 실천법들이 있거든요. 자연 속에서 자신도 즐기고 또 자연을 지킬 수 있는 활동을 좀 더 놀이로서 재밌고 즐겁고 유쾌하게 이런 환경이란 게 너무 딱딱하고 내가 뭔가 힘을 들여서 해야 되는 일이 아니라 우리가 즐기면서 함께 할 수 있는 놀이처럼 그렇게 느낄 수 있는 자리를 많이 마련하는 그런 클린 하이커가 되고 싶습니다.
나는 쓰레기로 먹는 크리컬러.
Maybe I gotta do it. I can't see a number. Can somebody help me? It's your imagination. Maybe I gotta do. I can't see a number. Can somebody? As I carry on with all that I am, I won't let you down. Yeah, that's family I'm singing for. With all that I am, I'll be there with you. Open up your heart, I will dance with you, oh my lover. We can finally feel.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. President Lee Jae-myung's first month in office has been defined by urgency and action. On day one, he chaired an emergency economic task force, pushed through a multi-trillion-won supplementary budget, and laid the groundwork for structural reforms. Early indicators now point to regained market confidence, consumer sentiment is up, and the Kospi crossed the 3,000 mark for the first time in over 3 years. But external pressure is mounting. President Trump has announced the U.S. will begin sending tariff rate letters to countries starting July 4th, warning that those without finalized deals by the 8th will face higher duties. With Korea still in talks, it's a critical test for the administration's trade strategy. In our fourth installment to mark 1 month of President Lee Jae-myung's presidency, we turn to the economy, how the administration is responding to public anxiety, and what early moves signal about its broader economic direction. To help us break things down, we are joined by Jin-il Kim, professor of economics at Korea University, here in the studio with us. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
And also joining us online is Hwa-gyun Kim, professor of banking and finance at Texas A&M University's Mays Business School. Good to see you again, Professor.
Thank you for the invite.
Right, so let's start with Professor Jin-il Kim. Now, like I said, President Lee's first month has been a blitz. Emergency meetings and supplementary budgets in 2 weeks. How would you assess this fast-paced approach?
The last month was, as you said, the blitz. Actually, I first learned the word blitz when I was in the States watching football. And Hwa-gyun is Texas A&M, so he knows much better than myself on football. Blitz is when the defense team just run to the quarterback. It's very risky, very fast speed, and that's what the current administration is doing. And up to now, the administration has been doing pretty well. But as you mentioned, the external forces are not so friendly. Yeah, it's not really bad, but it's very fast moving and very volatile. But that's true for the whole world.
Right, and a lot of factors are factoring into the current situation. Now, building on this momentum, at his 1-month press conference yesterday, President Lee pointed to the Kospi's rally as one of the administration's early wins. Just 2 weeks in, the index broke through the 3,000 mark for the first time in 3.5 years. Professor Hwa-gyun, what message did this send to the financial markets, and how have they responded overall?
So typically when the new government is entering, then we tend to see the honeymoon period of like stock market going up. So in this case, we now see this kind of thing. And also the biggest factor of this, the big increase, I think, of Kospi index, I think, is the political uncertainty of Korea has been largely resolved. And this message has been well received by both domestic and foreign investors. And while there's no clear economic meaning, certain even numbers such as like 3,000, 4,000, or even 5,000 work as psychological threshold or anchor that signals to investors, in this case, both at home and abroad, I think, as a good message that Korea is back on the map for investing, especially in terms of stock market, I think. Obviously, the market interprets this rally as a validation of the administration's market-friendly reforms. Early policy moves such as like strengthening shareholder rights and probably changing the tax systems to encourage the dividends and payouts to investors. And I think those kind of things overall has been seen as like a pro-investor approach of the capital markets. So that together with this, the resolution of uncertainty about the political system of Korea, I think it works positively. As Professor Jin-il Kim mentioned, obviously the sustainability of this is going to depend on the continued improvement of the corporate earnings. After all, the stock price is going to be basically earnings divided by this discount. So discount part is probably somewhat improved, but whether this is going to be really seen as the improvement of the earnings is going to be important, the test for the government's the future as well as like a stock market.
So we'll have to see if this momentum continues. Now, so it's not only just the stock market that's reacting. Consumer sentiment is also hitting a 4-year high, Professor Jin-il. From what you have seen, do you think that this indicates that households are starting to believe that, the economy is rebounding?
Right. As Hwa-kyun just said, the stock market has reached some ground, and sentiment is what matters before it's transferred to the bottom line numbers like the earning numbers. And I can tell that there are certain rebound of the sentiment. And even the Seoul traffic is a little bit busier now than a few months ago. Of course, the last 6 months up to last month was an exception, but relative to that period, some sentiment is coming back. Whether it is transferred into the real thing or transformed into the corporate earnings and the real activities, so that depends on the policy and how well those are timed with each other.
So the shift in sentiment does really stand out. Now, let's turn to the latest appointments, Professor Chin-il. Key cabinet nominations, including the finance minister, have been announced. With this new economic control tower by the Lee administration, what stands out most for you?
So with some faces of the new administration, I think if I summarize or if I say what stands out the most, make pragmatism is what stands out the most. As you said, for the finance minister and other people in the economics team, both in the cabinet and the Blue House, I think both the experience matters a lot. So President Lee they constructed the team based on 3 different the background. One is, of course, the civil servants, and the second is probably the businessman, which is different from the 2 previous administrations. And the third one is probably advisor, and he's relying on quite heavily on the businessmen and other people as well as the professors. And there are some professors I know in the backgrounds, but he's doing very pragmatic way of combining the team based on who really could do the work. So I would summarize that as pragmatism. And if I go outside of economics team, and then probably your news may have covered a few appointments, which is not a really appointment because they are transferred from the previous administration. And that shows how much pragmatic he could be. And then, of course, that should be shown in the records and the results, and that will drive up the consumer sentiment again, and that will determine the next 4 years and 11 months.
Right. So President Lee's pragmatic approach has expanded from diplomacy to economy as well. Now, on the global front, today, we've been hearing some news that tariff negotiations with President Trump, it has still remained as the biggest diplomatic and economic hurdle. President Trump has announced starting as early as July 4th, the U.S. will begin sending official letters to countries detailing the tariff rates they will face. Now, against this backdrop, Professor Hwa-kyun, what is expected for South Korea, and how should we interpret Washington's latest move?
So clearly, if not permanent, I think this move marks a significant turning point in our economic relationship with the U.S., and obviously needs more attention. And that's where the dilemma of the President Lee and the new Korean government regime is going to face. So in terms of expectation, obviously it's important to recognize that our key industries, such as automobiles, steel, semiconductors, and some other related areas, are at the center of these negotiations. And although there was a pause for 90 days, there will be a high chance that the Korea is going to face tariffs up to 25%. Hopefully it's lower on these products. So what matters from now on, given that these tariffs are all over the place, all over the countries with somewhat differential tariff rates, what matters is going to be the relative difference. So at the end of the day, tax is tax. So it's like a sales tax to the U.S. Then if it is somewhat lower, I think that's going to be good. As long as it is lower than other countries, it's not going to be as hurtful as it looks. So I think the South Korea should actually really focus on how to reduce this kind of thing, assuming the worst case scenarios. And negotiations, obviously, with Washington have been tough, as President Lee also himself has admitted, I think progress has been slow and unclear what exactly the U.S. government is wanting. I think it is probably like because they're pressing on like non-tariff issues as well as tariff issues. So it's like overall sort of things such as American beef, digital service regulations, and network usage, and many things. So if the counterparty is the U.S. is asking for many things, the the tactic should be more like you have to break this down into smaller pieces and give like more quantitative numbers. And also the good history of like this free trade agreement, how actually beneficial it has been, because many Korean investors after all buy back like the U.S. stocks and treasuries. So that means the U.S. dollars coming back to Korea actually move back to the U.S. by investing in the U.S. That kind of things actually should be clearly mentioned with the numbers. At least that way, the South Korea probably can reduce the damage, and so that it still maintains the competitive edge against the trading partners.
Right. So trying to get a relative low compromise would be important. Now, there are a lot of efforts being made in this front. And in fact, South Korea's top trade negotiator, Yohan-gu, is heading to Washington promising, fair terms. Professor Jinil, what kind of strategy do you think is needed to avoid, higher tariffs?
So that's tough part for the chief negotiator. While I was waiting in the room, I heard the news that the Minister Yo was leaving for the airport in the afternoon. So he must be in the plane now, or if not, that he's waiting in the Incheon airport. So one thing is that he's going to Washington, D.C., and I know that we have only one direct flight to Washington, leaving in the morning from Seoul time. So he's not taking the direct flight, which means it shows how urgent it is. So if he's taking tomorrow morning flight, it's a direct flight, convenient, but he doesn't have that luxury. So he's going there through Atlanta from New York, and then having one night's sleep, even though it's tough because of the jet lag. So he still needs it. So it shows how urgent it is, how tough his job would be. And as the Hwa Kyun said, the notice from President Trump can come any day, so it's very last minute. So kind of giving what at the last minute and getting what, that's a very tough, but that's his job as a chief negotiator, and he has a record of the few years or decades of doing the job. So I hope he's getting what Korea will need in the next, not just 5, but the next 50 years.
Right, so the window's really tight at this point.
Yes.
And let's really hope for the best.
Right, so he will arrive in 15 years. And then, as you said, it's July 4th now, and then for maybe early in the morning for Professor Kim in the US. And then it's their holiday, the Independence Day, and they have a very big firework in Washington at least. So Mr. Yo may be able to watch it, and I'm sure that they will. His counterparts, the U.S. counterpart, will bring him to dinner somewhere, watching the firework from the Washington Monument, and then I hope he can celebrate, and then and then I hope that's a good news for Korea. Yeah, in the foreseeable future.
Let's hope the talks go well between the two sides. So even if, this tariff tensions are very strong right now, Korea posted a record June exports up more than 4%, powered by semiconductors and autos. Professor Hwa Kyun, what's driving this export rebound in the face of mounting U.S. trade pressure?
It's good news, but it's not good news in front of this type of the negotiation deal, right? Because the trade imbalance is the main kind of culprit of this type of talk. So having said that, clearly the main driving force probably is from semiconductor sector. There are a lot of pros and cons, setbacks, and things like that, and also competition with China. But still, the semiconductor is one of the most important products that Korea is producing, and in a very almost in a proprietary way. So clearly this has been be a big contributor of this export. And while because of the oil price dropping, the imports actually has been dropping. Therefore, we see the larger surplus in June. So I think that's an important notable point. But still, the demand for chips has been very steady and strong. And also because of the demand elasticity being low, despite these the higher price probably because of the exchange rate, still the U.S. Factories and firms actually still buy the Korean-made chips, and that's one of the reasons. The second one I think is automobile, as you mentioned, and probably for the last 10 years, even in Texas here, where many people drive like Ford F-150 trucks and things like that, I see more and more the Korean cars actually driving down the road. So that means the demand shifts indeed occur. So many actually the U.S. consumers start actually preferring the Korean cars. So when the demand actually increased, then what can we do? The export increase. So that's actually one of the also important reasons. Of course, also worth noting that some of the export may surge because of the companies accelerating shipments ahead of the July 8th U.S. tariff deadline. So possibly it can go down, I think, in July and August, because the larger shipments has been already made. Therefore, it could actually come down later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for expanding up on that, Professor Kim. Now, let's turn to domestic affairs, Professor Chin-il. The supplementary budget has passed the National Assembly subcommittee, now at 31.8 trillion won, which is 1.3 trillion won more than what was first proposed. But with the debate still swirling over things like universal coupons, what are the key challenges for the Lee administration right now?
So it's a very fast approval from the subcommittee, and then we heard it was being debated right now, half an hour ago, and maybe it's still being debated. Yeah, and there are many issues. First, the good news is that they're talking to each other and they're trying to get to a consensus. That's a good news. And they are discussing about the details right now. Of course, the details matter. Actually, the details are the ones that matters the most. As you know, the devil is in the details. And that's exactly true in this kind of the budget bill. And you mentioned the universal, consumer coupons, and whether that's universal or selective, and that they are doing in a kind of step function way. And there are many different ways of doing it. And as far as the Congress agrees, there's no exact answer for that. And they try what they are kind of intending to do, and they should be very clear about what they intend from that the details, the function. And let's see how it is achieved or not. Let's evaluate and that to do the right thing in the next step. And rather than talking too much about the philosophy of the universal versus selective, we should focus on the details and then how people will consume and design it such that we can evaluate in the future so that we can see what would be really done. There's a whole range of debate. We heard mentioned about hotel economics on the one end, and then no effect, perfect crowding out on the other. The truth is somewhere in the middle, but we don't know until we experiment. And this is a rare chance of experiments in macroeconomics, and that matters not just for economists like me and Hwa-kyun, but it does matter for the Korean society at the moment.
Right, so we will be able to get a clearer picture of that in the coming hours or so. Now, finally, before we let you go, Professor Hwa-kyun, looking further ahead, President Lee has vowed to modernize Korea's capital markets and usher in a new Kospi 5000 era. In your view, how feasible is this goal and what steps are needed to get there?
I mean, Korean market has been really, really depressed in some sense, despite the growth potential. So I know that people always complain about the low growth of the Korean market, and especially in competition with China and other emerging markets. But I mean, if you look at what the Korea actually is exporting, such as semiconductor chips and automobiles and other manufacturing, as well as the fancy, the high level industries, I think the growth part should be really high. despite, because easy like in a big text, but despite that, I think it's been really depressed and suppressed. So in that regard, the modernizing these type of the rules and the shareholder rights and things like that, it's a good news. So the Korea discount can be reduced. That will be amazing. 3,000 to 5,000, I think it means like almost like 70-80% increase. That means within 5 years, you should see like 20% increase, like a 15-20% increase every year. So it's going to be somewhat, a difficult goal. Although I think, about 30 to 40% increase is definitely doable with the amalgamation of like the new macroeconomic policy and also the renewal of these the rules and commercial laws that actually help the investors scoop their gains and things like that. So I think 5,000 level is a little probably high, but at least somewhere in between definitely is doable, especially if the Korea discount is going to be reduced. After all, I think Korea is selling the most advanced products.
Right. So President Lee's first month laid down a bold agenda, definitely. Now it's about execution, both home and on the global stage. We'll keep close tabs on that. We'll have to wrap up our discussion at this point tonight. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights, Professor Chin-il.
Thank you.
And Professor Hwa-Kyun. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer